proposed revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Now, as you may know, my running mate, Tim, is Catholic and went to Jesuit schools. And one of the things he and I have talked about is this idea from the Jesuits of the Magus, the more, the better.
Greetings and welcome to another reading of Codeword Barbelon on this Saturday, Sabbath day, May 5th. I guess that's, what do they call that? Cinco de Mayo or something? That's some kind of Spanish thing. I don't know much about it, but
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo. Welcome, Michael and Jörg, to this reading of Codeword Barbelon. We're in the Masonic Rites and Symbols, the Grand Architect of the Universe and His Magnetism chapter. I believe it's 42, is it? No, 41. No. Am I wrong here?
41.
XL. Is XL 40? I forget now.
X is 50, X is 50, and X is 10, L is 50, and I is 1.
So
this actually means 50 minus 10 plus 1, so that's 41.
Right. Okay. Cool. So I'm sorry. I apologize to our listeners for being a little groggy in the mornings. I'm not always with it, and I guess maybe I have my good days and I have my bad days, Jörg.
Like we all do, Brett.
Yeah,
like
right.
We all do. So that just means that you're not an exception,
right?
And that just makes you human. I mean,
yeah, that's really just it.
That makes you a man, you know.
Yeah. No. It's just the way it is, man. I mean, certainly we have to abide by laws and principles in order to communicate, right?
Yeah.
So, we'll just get right into this reading here, page 415. And Michael, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hello,
Great.
Brett. Hello,
Do you
Jörg.
have anything to say before we begin?
Not at all.
Okay, wonderful. We really appreciate having you with.
Yeah, we do. So, okay, I'm going to start reading on the occult rite of Paladin on page 415 of the book Codeword Barbelon. In the book, The Master's Carpet, and I just have to make a comment right here. This book, The Master's Carpet, I don't know it, but I know that Tom spoke about it, that he read that years ago. And that is just a wealth of information on Freemasonry. Very interesting to get. And I don't know, maybe we can ask him later today, this evening, my time, when we have our Sabbath Bible study, Brett.
Yes.
To see if I'm correct with that. But I think I remember that he said that he wrote that he read that book, The Master's Carpet, about Freemasonry. He even read it probably on amateur radio. So this is a very valuable source that P.D. Stewart mentions here. In the book The Master's Carpet by Edmund Romaine, past Grand Master of Lodge 639 in Chicago, we read, quote, "The Lodge Room then is brought before us as a symbol of the universe, governed by the Sun God, S-U-N, Sun God, and its cubical form expressed in the language of the ritual is made to represent the united power of light and darkness. The large room is where the God of nature, the great architect of the universe, always presides, where his symbol is always displayed, where his worship is always practiced." Unquote. Now there you see one very profound difference between Freemasonry and their religion and the religion that is in the religion of Bible. It says here, the lodge room is where the God of nature, the G-A-O-T-U, always presides and where his symbol is always displayed. The God of the Bible doesn't have any symbol. He even tells us to not make any symbols or signs or idols or images or whatever from things that are in heaven, on earth, or in the waters beneath the earth to make a symbol of him.
Yep. It's an
Very, very big
abomination.
difference. Yeah, it's an abomination to him.
Yep.
And I think when you recognize these tiny little details, you already know what Freemasonry is all about, right? That it can never be Christian-y in any shape or form.
Yep, that's right.
Correct?
That's correct. It's just a usurpation.
Yeah, but the point is, and that's why I'm saying this, Brett, not because I want to be smarter than all the rest, but the point is that when you read a book like this, you really have to watch every little word that you read, where his symbol is always displayed. This tells me already that that grand architect of the universe can never be the God of the Bible.
That's right.
Never ever. And they actually expose that in writings like that what I've just read to you. It is a little bit like the Bible that explains itself. Also, Freemasonry and Jesuitism explains itself too. When you have the understanding to read their publications, like this quote that I just read from the Master's Carpet book, you understand what it really is all about. And you can tear off the disguise from that mask that is behind there, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You can really identify what it's all about. And I think, therefore, it is so important that that you read this book and not read it like Moby Dick, like the Bible. You don't have to read it like Moby Dick, but you have to read it with understanding and with an open mind, and then let the word sink in and try to analyze everything that is written here. Where his symbol is always displayed, that cannot be anything conferring to the Bible, right?
Wow.
So the Mason is told at the ritual of exaltation, quote, the great architect of the universe, or G-A-O-T-U, unquote, is Jabulon. Jabulon is a code name for Lucifer. Do you doubt this? Do you? The highest Masonic rite, which overarches all other rites, is called Palladism, or the Palladium rite. That Palladism borrows heavily from the Knights Templars and can be seen from the fact that Palladism honors the Templars' god, Baphomet. Griffin informs us that, quote, Pike organized the new and reformed Palladian rite. 3 supreme councils were established at Charleston, South Carolina, in the United States of America, Rome, Italy, and Berlin, Germany, unquote. Says Domenico Margotta, the 33rd degree Freemason, the rite of Palladium is little known as the number of its initiates is strictly limited, and the rite itself and all its deliberations is kept a closely guarded secret. No mention of it would ever be made in the assemblies of the lodges and inner shrines of other rites. Margotta then adds, quote, Palladism is necessarily a Luciferian rite. Its religion of Manichaean neo-Gnosticism, teaching that the divinity is dual and that Lucifer is the equal of Adonai, means Christ, with Lucifer, the god of light and goodness, struggling for humanity against Adonai, the god of darkness and evil, unquote. What more evidence do we need that the Masonic lodges, like the Jesuit novitiates, are temples where Satan dwelleth, to use a term from the Book of Revelation. Now, the Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics puts it this way, quote, "The latter group, with which we are mainly concerned, was known under the alternative names of Luciferians and Palladists. They were said to adore Lucifer, the equal and foe of Adonai, Yahweh. He was in their view the god of light, the good principle, while Adonai was the god of darkness, the evil principle. The name Palladists is derived from a palladium, which they, the higher Masons, were said to revere, namely the Baphomet, or grotesque idol. These relics were averred to have become the sacred objects of a society which was a development of Freemasonry." Unquote. The Builders, already cited, is a small but interesting book, which, according to Henry Wilson Coyle, was written at the request of the Grand Lodge of Iowa, and is in widespread use among Masons. Coyle wrote in his Masonic Encyclopedia, quote, "Dr. Newton was an active Freemason and lectured widely to lodges in Iowa, delivering especially a lecture called The Men's House. At the request of the Grand Lodge of Iowa, he wrote The Builders, a copy of which was presented to the very candidate raised in that state. It has also become one of the most widely read Masonic books of modern times. It has been translated into several foreign languages, and, after the first edition in 1914, it appeared in editions as follows: 1915, 16, 20, 21, 22, 24, and 26, was revised in 1930, 45, and 46, revised and enlarged in 1951. The publisher of The Builders described the book in one of its catalogue as, quote, "the outstanding classic and Masonic literature of all times. Many Grand Lodges present a copy to each newly raised Mason," unquote. In a chapter titled The Secret Doctrine, the author of The Builders gives the following tribute to Arthur Edward Waite, quote, "Perhaps the greatest student in his field of esoteric teaching and method, certainly the greatest of now living, is Arthur Edward Waite, to whom it is a pleasure to pay tribute. And the result, speaking of Waite's books, is a series of volumes noble in form, united in name, unique in wealth, of revealing beauty and of unequaled worth. Beginning as far back as 1886, Waite issued his study of the mysteries of magic, a digest of the writings of Eliphas Levi, to whom Albert Pike was more indebted than he let us know." Unquote. Now, in the Mysteries of Magic, Arthur Edward Waite writes unshamedly, quote, "The great Lucifer, termed the devil by the ignorant, Lucifer is termed the devil by the ignorant. What is more absurd and more impious than to attribute the name of Lucifer to the devil, that is, to personified evil? Lucifer is the spirit of intelligence and love. The Paraclete, the Holy Spirit, the physical Lucifer, is the great agent of universal magnetism." Unquote. Now, what is the Paraclete? Its root is Greek parakletos, meaning comforter. So Masons believe Lucifer is the comforter and the light bearer. So in other words, when Jesus was saying, "I have to go, but I will not leave you alone, I will send you the comforter," Masons understand from that Jesus was going up to heaven and sent Lucifer to take care of us, right? That's a strange kind of a religion. So Masons believe Lucifer is the comforter and the light bearer. And what about universal magnetism? This is a term used to describe the occult theory of life force. In Hinduism, it is called the Shakti field and Shiva field. Wiccans can refer to this force as the goddess of or Pan. Some Satanists allude to it as the Dark Mother, Kali, and Shiva. In the Vedic or Tantric tradition, it is called the Sat, S-A-T, hence the chant Sat Nam in yoga, which while Reich termed orgone energy. We read earlier that the Hindus believe in the third eye of Shiva, or the Parashiva, which, according to Blavatsky, is another name for Satan. See citation later on. Here is the connection to Freemasonry. The Mason author Karl Claudi writes, quote, "This," speaking of the symbol of the all-seeing eye, "this is one of the oldest and most widespread symbols denoting God. We find it in Egypt and India. In Egypt, the open eye represents Osiris. In India, Shiva is represented by an eye, the bindi, or red dot," unquote. You know, this red dot that people paint between their two eyes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So that is actually for to represent a god. And Shiva is known as the destroyer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
May I add something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because maybe some of the listeners do know the Swiss laboratorium or science foundation, CERN, C-E-R-N.
Yeah.
And they got the Large Hadron Collider where they are looking for antimaterial. And on the entrance of this big, I think it's a 30-mile Hadron Collider where they are looking for antimaterial, there's a statue of Shiva.
Statue of Shiva.
Yeah, that's right.
That's correct.
That's right. I think I used that in one of the ecumenical videos we made for All Roads Lead to Rome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, it's known to everybody who does a little bit studies in this direction that they're in CERN. They are very busy with these. First of all, it was the quote-unquote God particle that they wanted to find, you know.
Right.
They wanted to find the source of life, to explain to humanity how out of nothing everything came into existence and how from non-living material, living material can exist. Therefore, they needed that God particle. But as soon as they found it, they found out there are still smaller parts to discover. I mean, that's like when they were doing studies of the atom, and they thought that the atom was the smallest part of which all things consist. And then all of a sudden they split the atom and thought and found out that there are smaller parts like neutrons and protons and all that stuff, which are smaller than atoms, you know.
Right.
Man does never find the secret of life when he looks like this. The secret of life can only be found in the Bible and not in the world. But of course, the pagans teach that they can find the secret of life by themselves, because after all, that is the promise that the snake or the serpent gave Eve in the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Yea, hath God said, but you will be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when you will be as gods, that means you will live forever. And they think that with this quote-unquote AI, artificial intelligence, they have found the golden key, you know? But I have to tell you, there is no artificial intelligence. Because that artificial intelligence just builds up on things that are already known in the system that we are living in.
That's right.
It only makes new combinations and all that stuff, but it is not an intelligence out of itself. It is all just a matter of knowledge.
It's
and when
just
you can
manipulation.
when you can have one computer where you can put in all the knowledge of the world, that doesn't make that computer intelligent. It's just a very big library, and that thing or whatever you want to call it just knows which cupboard to go to and take that book out, or which drawer to go to and take that information out. That's all. And that's not intelligence. It's just a brain that is a little bigger than ours without being actually a living brain, but just a storage compartment. Yeah? There is no artificial intelligence, as they want to tell you. And as they promote through movies like, for example, The Terminator. I think The Terminator is the very first movie that came out with the idea that they said he is guided by a computer chip. And that computer chip can learn, can adapt to new situations. And that they call artificial intelligence. And the Terminator movie is from the early 90s, so already quite some years old now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Now, have you heard of these self-driving cars? I'm sure you have.
Yeah. Wasn't there a big accident in the United States on that?
There was one that got mowed down by one and killed a lady. I guess I didn't watch any videos or anything, but supposedly there's one online. I was reading a web page that had a link to a video where you can watch this automatic driving car kill someone on the road. Now that's the last thing I would want to do. What a horrible thing. But
it's always horrible when someone loses his life because of a car accident. But the question is, if you are driving in a car that is self-driven, who is responsible for accidents like these? You cannot put the computer of the car before the courtroom, before the judge, right?
Nope, but you can put the programmers up. The people that program it.
They will not be reliable, and you know that much as I do.
Not.
So
this
is just
the drones. Well, who is responsible for a drone then?
The one who is steering it. But the problem is that a lot of people who are steering these drones think they are actually playing some kind of a computer game. They have no idea that is in reality.
It's weird, yeah. It's really strange.
I mean, that's how these people are raised. This goes even much farther back. That goes back to the beginning, when the computer was making its way into the family as the personal computer that we always have that we all have today in our home, and the first programs that came out of these flight. What was this called? Flight simulators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these flight simulators that were on there. And then later on, you had games like TFA, Grand Theft Auto, GTA, that's what it's called, GTA, Grand Theft Auto, where a lot of people playing this game just were losing their morals. And that's the
really
idea
good
behind
point, Jörg. Yeah.
And that's the reason behind these games. So when now today you have these games where you are steering drones, and people go out there and kill people in these drones, they don't care whether these are real people on the street or people just in a computer game, because they don't even know the difference. There's this video out that was quote unquote a WikiLeaks, which is absolutely BS, but that was famous, going around the world, showing people, American soldiers in a helicopter. What? Ja, dann hat er Pech, ich bin jetzt hier beschäftigt. Dann sagst du ihm, dass ich jetzt nicht kann. Guys, I think we have to make a little break here. There's someone at the door I have to go to.
No problem. Sounds good. We'll come right back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Thanks.
I call you back, right?
Okay. Bye-bye.
So yeah, I'm back. Sorry for the interruption that happened there. My landlord just came to inform me that he gave me a smaller lawnmower. Now I have to do more of this idiotic work outside in the garden, probably tomorrow when I have to mow the lawn. And I'm going to pick it up right now where I left off. I was telling you about this video that was going viral on YouTube, supposedly coming from WikiLeaks at the time, where there was a recording of a helicopter during the last Gulf War, which George W. Bush called so profoundly a crusade, as you remember. And in this video, we see a helicopter of the United States military and some guys who are joking around and just think it's funny to blow up a van out there in the streets and kill several people. Among them, in the van, captured a little child who died in the attack. And that is just that kind of mindset, Brett, that we have to deal with in these days.
That's right.
People are programmed through quote unquote harmless computer programs in the very first place, like the flight simulator to start with, like with GTA later on, this absolutely violent computer game, to lose their morals and to lose their grip on reality and make that what is in the computer reality and make that what is in reality into that computer. So when they are taught to fly a drone, like probably they do outside of Ramstein in Germany, where you have this American headquarters for the whole of Africa and the Middle East section, where you have people operating these computers and these drones. They don't know whether they are doing a game or it's all a game to them when they fly these drones and they shoot people from that, you know. There have been numerous attacks from drones the past years during the Obama administration, in the time that they were quote unquote hunting down Osama bin Laden, a guy who was dead for, I don't know, 10 years at that time or whatever.
Mhm.
And but they used drone after drone to bomb houses in Iraq, in Syria, and I don't know what places all over the world, just because there were supposedly some terrorists in there. And this is how people absolutely lose their grip on reality. And that's the training that they do. And I just couldn't help. I had to make this comment during this reading here, because I think this is really important when we want to understand everything that drives these people here in Freemasonry.
Yeah, that's right, Jörg. And you know, it's really troubling when you have these experiences with friends. I have a friend here in Minneapolis who's really likes the video games, and he got some of these from one of his coworkers, and he wanted to start playing it. And it's like multiple personality disorder or something. It's like you start playing this game, and then all of a sudden, it's like, who is this?
You become a totally different person. Yeah.
Who is this? This isn't my friend Eric. This is someone else. So I'm out of here, man. See ya.
Yeah, you know, Brett, there again comes to help that explanation that we got when we analyzed the word entertainment. Enter, to come in, tain, to hold in possession, and then meant to hold in the state of possession. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Entertainment. This is what these games are all about. And when you open up yourself to them, these games will actually possess you. Not the game itself, but a spirit that is not of God will take possession of you and will lead you into all these stuff. And multiple, how did you call that? Multiple personality disorder.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely correct. That is taking place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is. We've been trained into it from early age, with all these different memes and stuff. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But anyway.
Yeah.
I comment.
Yeah,
please.
Small comment, guys. I recall Tamagotchi.
Yeah,
as an example.
This little electronic devices where you had this quote unquote animal in this little electronic device that was in the mid of the 1990s, if I remember correctly. And those were quote unquote little pets. And whenever it cried, you had to soothe it, and you had to feed it, and you had to play with it, and all that stuff. And the question was how good you were with it. That the longer this Tamagotchi survived. That of course is a toy that came out of Japan, as you can already probably know from the name Tamagotchi. And I think today there's even a Tamagotchi 2.0. They put out there. I heard something like that. I didn't do any research on that, but yeah, That is true. Making and I think the point that Michael wants to make with this is make something technical, something inhuman, in something not living, make it living, give it feelings, give it expressions that we can, enjoy it. That we start having feelings for this. This is like the movie, if I'm allowed to say that, like the movie AI. Have you seen that one from Steven Spielberg with this little boy who is actually a robot, but he plays his role so fantastic as a robot. He is so human, programmed, programmed as a human being, that you as the viewer really have sentiment for him. You have feelings for him. You have sympathy
Right.
for that little guy, even though it is a computer, like the Terminator is just a computer, just a machine.
Yep.
But because of the outside appearance of this human appearance on the outside, you will develop feelings for that. And this is how they go with the robot industry, or especially in Japan, where they are trying to make robots look alike, that much like a man, that you can't even tell the difference anymore.
Yeah.
This is where we're going.
Actually, my point was that people are distracted from real caring for real people, for old people, for weak people, for kids and children, etc., etc. But instead focusing on these useless Tamagotchis and computer games, so to distract them from the real human development. You see.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Okay.
Good point taken. So I'm going to continue reading, and then I'll tap on page 418, where we start with a quote from Helen Petrova Blavatsky. She explains this even further, what we've just read. Quote, forehead, that is occult electric vital power, which under the will of the creative logos, which she says is Lucifer, unites and brings together all forms, giving them the first impulse, which becomes in time law. He is metaphysically the objectified thought of the gods, the word made flesh, the active force in universal life. Unquote. Well, I don't think that I should even go into starting analyzing this little paragraph, because I think I won't be done before tomorrow. How blasphemous and all that stuff is what Helena Petrova Blavatsky writes in this few sentences we've just read here. Yeah.
Yep.
Metaphysically, the objectified thoughts of the gods. The gods, there's only one God, first and for all. But I don't go into that, because otherwise
then how
it's
about
tomorrow
metaphysical,
and I'm
right?
still not
Yeah.
done. Yeah. Also, yeah.
Difficult.
Now, this is almost identical to the description of Lucifer given by Masonic Grandmasters Albert Pike, Manly P. Hole, and Arthur E. Wade. The Jesuits, too, have had a significant role and influence in the development of this theory of universal magnetism, or vital power, occult energy. Of course they did, because the Jesuits control Freemasonry from top to bottom. Now, the eminent Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher, who lived between 1602 and 1680, sometimes spelled Kirchner, so I say Kircher, it's Kirchner, whatever, wrote the most comprehensive work on magnetism in the 17th century, a book called Magnesive de Arte Magnetica Opus Tripartium, which stands for Magnets or the Art of Magnetism, from 1643. According to Kircher, the soul, spirit, and physical phenomena belong to the dimensions of magnetism. Kircher linked his magnetic interpretation of the universe to the more ancient teachings about the mysterious fundamental force taught by Plato, the unspeakable power, aretos dynamis, of the Greeks. Unquote. You see, this always happens when pagans try to understand God's words and God's works. They cannot, because from a worldly standpoint, from a pagan standpoint, you cannot understand divine thinking and doing. It's impossible. And that's how they come up with all this load of crap.
That's right.
Yeah? Now, in Kircher's equation of the divine spirit, called Paraclete, or the Holy Spirit by the Masonic author Edward Wade, is the vis magnetica Dei, with all-pervasive power. This magnetica was identified as the central spiritual sun, or sun, sun god, by the Kabbalists, and you will recall that Wade says that the physical Lucifer is the great agent of universal magnetism. Helena Petrova Blavatsky, the notorious occultism and necromancer, who said that Lucifer is the Logos, or the light, relied extensively on Kircher's work to write her books. It is also noteworthy that the father of modern hypnosis, Anton Mesmer, was exposed to Kircher's ideas on magnetism during his studies at the leading Jesuit college in Dillingen in Bavaria, the birthplace of Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati, as we remember. As we saw earlier, hypnosis is the essence of the spiritual exercises of Loyola. Note too that the act of hypnotism uses the same occult energy invoked in yoga, Kundalini, Parashiva, or serpent energy. Shiva is one of the principal gods of the Hindu pantheon, sometimes represented as a yogi, in whom are concentrated the powers acquired by meditation, penance, and a life of austerity. Shiva is also known, according to some ancient authorities, by many epithets, among them the three-eyed one. Shiva, writes Helena Petrova Blavatsky, is also called Bel, Baal, and Bel, and Siva, the destroyer. The chaos of the Babylonians, the great dragon Tiamat, the sea serpent, the devil, unquote. All pedigrees of the devil. The Hindus teach that it is through the goddess Kali, or Shakt, the wife of Shiva, that we receive the experience of enlightenment or inner illumination, as well as other mystical or psychic experience. Hindus call Shiva or Siva the mystery of the son of the Dark Mother. This son, S-O-N, according to Anton LaVey and Helena Blavatsky, is called Siva, Satan, Baal, Lucifer. It is well established that Shiva's mother, the Dark Mother, is given disguised names such as the Black Madonna, Sybil, Diana, and Queen of Heaven, which are nothing more than veiled appellations of Sophia, also known as Isis. I have to add Semiramis and Mary, because I don't know why he doesn't mention Semiramis here. It's all going back to the Babylonian trinity of Semiramis, Nimrod, and Tammuz. Yeah? Nimrod being the sun god, Tammuz being the son born from Semiramis, the wife of Nimrod, and then being born after the death of Nimrod, when Semiramis was quote-unquote impregnated by the sun and gave birth to Tammuz, who is actually the Jesus Christ of Roman Catholicism, according to Alexander Hislop. Degrees of Freemasonry. We continue if nobody of my guests here has any question or comment on the things we just read.
Please go right ahead, Jörg. I think we're good.
There are two paths up the Masonic hierarchy, the Scottish Rite and the York Rite Masonry. The Scottish Rite awards 30 higher degrees, plus the 3 lower Blue Lodge degrees. The higher degrees include Secret Master, which is the 4th degree, to Sovereign Grand Inspector General, which is 33rd degree. The York Rite awards 10 degrees from Mark Master to Order of Knights Templar, the latter being equivalent to a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. The 9th degree is called the Encampment of the Knights of Malta degree, and is also the home of the Knight of the Red Cross and the Knight Templar. In fact, American Templarism comprises 3 degrees. First, Order of the Red Cross of Rome, which is its fuller name. second, Knights Templar, and third, Knights of Malta. The order of the Knights of Malta is in fact the second step in the commandery of Knights Templar, which is the 10th degree. Even hats and uniforms are very similar. The diagram above, which is pictured here on page 420 in the book, shows the degrees in the Masonic hierarchy. Note that only the Scottish Rite lists its degrees by number, i.e. 1 through 33rd degree. The York Masonic Rite, on the left of the diagram, designates its degrees by name and even omits some of the lower degrees contained in the Scottish Rite. The highest degree of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, the meritorious degree, the degree of the Illuminati, also known as the Meritorious Service Award, or the Honorary Inspector General of the 33rd degree. The Masonic Forum website states, quote, "The 33rd degree is conferred upon those members of the 32nd who have been outstanding in their contributions to Freemasonry to the Scottish Rite. It cannot be sought by application, but must be such a man as described above, who has been selected by the Supreme Council of his jurisdiction and who is not less than 33 years of age." Yeah, it is not by application, it is by selection, by invitation that you become a 33rd degree Freemason. The motto of this degree, of the 33rd degree, is Ordo ab Chaos, means order of chaos. Out of chaos comes order, sorry. Out of chaos comes order. Or as we more normally say most of the times, is just order out of chaos, right? And they are building very, very strong on that chaos, of which they will rise like the phoenix out of the ashes, the quote-unquote New World Order, which is nothing else but the old world order restored in all its glory. And finally, Satan will have his day of worship, which he always wanted, since already in the beginning of chapter 4 in the book of Matthew, in the Gospel of Matthew, he tried to convince Jesus Christ to bow down and worship him. That's been the goal all along.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to continue in chapter XLYY, means 42, Christian Masonry, Secret Weapon of the Jesuits. Christian Masonry, Secret Weapon of the Jesuits. Well, if you are really a true Bible-believing Christian, you can never be caught in this trap of the Jesuits, of course.
Yeah.
But there are many, many people who think that they can be a Christian on the one hand and they can be a Mason on the other.
Yep, double-minded,
there are also,
right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are also many people who think that they can be part-time Christians. Christianity is something to fill up my leisure time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when I have time, I think of Jesus, and someday I will go to church. I will bow my head and I will fold my hands in obedience to my God. But you know, when you put your hands together in prayer, do you know that that is a Babylonian tradition in the first place?
Oh, no, did not.
It is. Look it up.
Wow.
I was surprised too when I found out some weeks ago.
I bet.
But putting your hands together in prayer is Babylonian, is a pagan tradition. And when you look it up in the Bible, even pictures that we have, like, for example, there's one picture that we have of Daniel, in Daniel 9, for example, when he prays for Israel, he puts out his hands to heaven.
Yes. Yes.
And
big
that's
difference.
how we should do it, because by praying, then we can receive the Holy Spirit and we can receive the answer of God. And we are open for God's Spirit.
You know,
and
it's
not
so
putting our
interesting,
hands
Jörg,
together and
is
being
that
closed in that.
it's just all vanity. I mean, all across the board, there's so much that we've learned that's vanity.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-blowing when you really think about it.
It is, yeah. I'll give you
Speaking
that.
Mm-hmm.
speaking of Babylonian origin, I have looked up with the help of Jörg because on page 421 on this Codeword Barbelon, there is a picture of an obelisk, and I have looked it up and asked Jörg about the origin, and he has referred to chapter 23 of Rulers of Evil from Tapasosi. And there is mentioned the black obelisk of Kala, which stands in the Babylonian Assyrian wing of the British Museum, etc., etc. So these kind of obelisks are related to the Babylonian history as well. And so you see there's a quite a connection to these obelisks which are used in the Vatican or in Washington, etc.
Mm-hmm.
All over the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are obelisks in Rome, in the Vatican, in England, in London, in New York, in Central Park.
Yep.
There's a big obelisk standing there. There, of course, is one of the biggest obelisks in the world, which is called the Washington Monument. And of course, you also have the highest obelisk in the whole of world, and that is in Texas. And that was there commemorated for the end of the Civil War. I don't come to the name right now, but it has on the top a 5-pointed star. You can look that up.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
I just can't remember the name for the moment right now.
No
and
problem.
That is the biggest obelisk in the whole world.
Yep. Yeah. In Texas, yeah.
Yeah, and the point that Michael wanted to make is when Michael read a few pages before page 414 of this book here, which we did earlier, he said, because in the book here is the quote from 2 Kings somewhere, what is it, chapter 20 or whatever, 2 Kings chapter 10 verse 26 from the Amplified Bible, where it speaks about the obelisk, you know. It says here in the book on page 414, go in and slay them, let none escape. And they smote them with the sword, and the guards before the king threw their bodies out and went into the inner dwelling of the house of Baal. They thought out the obelisk of the house of Baal and burned them, unquote. This is a quote from 2 Kings 10:26, but it's from the Amplified Bible. And you maybe remember, Brett, that at that moment I said, why does he mention here the Amplified Bible? Why is he not using the King James Bible?
That's
you know, a big flaw in my eyes,
sure,
at least.
Yep.
And Michael, I think it was yesterday or so, he came up to me and asked me about this and said, well, but when you read the King James Bible, there you don't read anything about an obelisk. And then I turned him to Esort, which he didn't know yet.
Right.
So I'm just looking that up. 2 Kings 10:26. And there you see that the word images that is used in the King James is from the Hebrew matzabah. And that is a feminine causative participle, something stationed that is a column or a memorial stone, by analogy an idol, garrison, standing, an image, a pillar. Yeah. So it says in the King James, and they brought forth the images out of the house of Baal and burned them. But with images is used the word H4676 in Esort, and that is described as, I said, an idol, a garrison, a standing image, a pillar. So, a obelisk. But still, I don't understand why P.D. Stewart doesn't use the King James version instead, and then make his point.
Yeah,
and of course, then I turned Michael to Rulers of Evil, where this obelisk is now in the English Museum, where we see Jehu, the king of Israel at that time, bowing down to King Salmanasar of Babylon with the Phrygian cap on. And that Phrygian cap is very important because when you look up at the apotheosis in the capital of the United States in Washington, with all these murals that are on top of there, all these paintings on the top of there is America, this little guy wearing the Phrygian cap. You know?
That's right.
These symbols always come back. And I thought it was very interesting that here we have in our material pagan world that we live in, the Antichrist world, a proof of how correct the Bible is.
Mhm.
When we have a obelisk that pictures a Israelite king with a Phrygian cap on, bowing down to the king of Babylon. You know,
Mm.
this is just fantastic how you can make then these connections from the
Yeah.
Bible on the one hand into this quote unquote world history,
Mhm.
because this is a historic obelisk that they put there in that thing. So, yeah, that was quite an interesting thing that you brought up there, Michael, and made me look that up too. And I'm glad that the King James once again proved to be the only one and true preserved Word of God.
Yeah. You see, I was that surprised to learn that the obelisk is not the origin. The origin of the obelisk is not from the Freemasons. So I always thought they were originated from Egypt or so. But to learn they are from Babylon too, that surprised me that much. And I'm very glad that you came up with the source of Tapasosi and also from the Bible, of course. So heads off.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I think we are some 50 minutes in the recording. Do you want me to start chapter 42, Christian Masonry?
Yeah.
Well,
we could
sure,
still
we
on-
could.
read
We
on
could
for a
always
moment?
wait too if you want. It's entirely up to
No, for me
you
it's
guys.
okay that we start
Okay, let's
reading
go.
now. You
Yep,
know?
let's
Okay.
go.
So chapter 42 of Codeword Barbelon, Christian Masonry, secret weapon of the Jesuits. We start with a quote from Bishop Norman Vincent Peale, a Scottish Rite in the Scottish Rite Journal, which goes as follows: Freemasonry has always welcomed men of all faith and religious beliefs to enter its doors. Unquote. And from A.M. Payson, Proof of the Illuminati, we read, Weishaupt framed many new systems of Christianity to deceive his adepts. Unquote. Many new systems of Christianity. First of all, Christianity is not a system, and Christianity is not created. I mean, there's so many wrong already with this one quote.
That's awesome,
You know?
Jörg. Yeah, that's right. You got it.
Let's continue reading here. The cloak of religion still conceals the vices which Machiavelli laid bare in the character of Ferdinand of Aragon. Unfortunately, most people will not look at things that as they really are, but as they wish them to be, and are ruined. According to John Daniel, the author of the book The Grand Design Exposed, who was a
That's
frequent
right.
guest with Tom Friess in
That's
2009
right.
and 2010 on First Amendment Radio.
That's right.
And by the way, led Tom Friess to the reading of the book The Ark and the Dove by J. Moss Ives, which is absolutely pivotal for the understanding of the founding of the United States of America when you put this book together with Rulers of Evil, and when you are able to read that book without Catholic glasses on. That's very important, because when you read that book as it is written by J. Moss Ives, who is a Catholic author, you will never understand the message of that book. You have to read it with Protestant eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now, according to this John Daniel, quote, the Jesuits of Rome have perfected Freemasonry to be their most magnificent and effective tool, accomplishing their purpose among Protestants, unquote. And another little mentioning that I want to make here is of our brother who has been lost to the world since almost 2 years now, Jesse Vessel.
Mm-hmm.
He read that book of John Daniel.
That's right, he did, didn't
on
he?
his channel, The Grand Design Exposed. So when you just type in the search engine in YouTube, Jesse Vessel, Jesse Vassil, you will be led to his YouTube channel that is still in existence, and you can watch his reading and discussion of the book, The Grand Design Exposed by John Daniel. I just want to mention this for a second, because we have lost Jesse Vessel to the works of the devil, and he has turned from his ministry and turned to the world. And we still hope and we still pray, Jesse, that you will pop up again and will be again a part of the body of Christ. Doubt it not, the author continues. After the restoration of the Jesuits in 1814, the Illuminati undertook another important mission, the infiltration of Protestant churches and the destruction of the Protestant religion by leavening of its doctrines. In March 1778, Adam Weishaupt wrote to his friend Cato, aka Zwack. So Zwack was his normal name, his how do you say that? His civil name.
Yeah.
And Cato was his name within the Illuminati, as was Spartacus the name of Adam Weishaupt. I never forget that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah.
Quote, I say to Protestants that Freemasonry is concealed Christianity. You can't imagine what respect and curiosity my priest degree has raised. A famous Protestant divine of who is now of the order is persuaded that the religion contained in it is the true sense of Christianity. Oh man, to what mayst thou not be persuaded? Who would imagine that I was to be the founder of a new religion? I have so contrived things that I would admit even popes and kings, who those who possess this knowledge are indeed Illuminati. Hiram, speaking of Hiram Abiff, is our fictitious Grand Master. Freemasonry is a royal art, unquote. Now this little quote that is in here, oh man, to what mayest thou not be persuaded? I know in a little different shape and form, this little quote, what can man not made to believe? But actually it says, of course, the same thing. Mm-hmm. And this is where this originates from, in the letter that Weishaupt wrote to Cato, his quote-unquote brother in the Illuminati order.
Comment.
Please.
Yeah, I was just thinking, when you read this, I was thinking of that song by Duran Duran of all bands, A New Religion. You ever heard that one?
Maybe I don't know. I know a lot of songs of Duran Duran because I quite liked them in the time.
Right.
But New Religion, I'm not familiar with, no.
Oh, I really, really listen to that album a lot. And I mean, this is
the album is called New Religion or what?
No, it's just a song in the album of Rio. You remember that album, Rio?
No, I never had an album.
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, they were one of my favorite bands when I was growing up, of course. And I think maybe Michael's heard of it. And anyway, I just thought, I bet. So I was just thinking that song, comes to mind just because, there's so many different things going on with these ideologies, with the music uses ideology and history uses ideology, and it all revolves around that. So the kings of the earth use it too, and they use it to pervert or rather persuade the mindset of generations to perhaps be persuaded one way or another by the different, whatever means, right?
You know what I have to think of when I read the title of this chapter, Christian Masonry, Secret Weapon of the Jesuit? It reminds me of Tom Frass,
yes,
who told us that Freemasonry is nothing else but the Christian arm or the Protestant arm of the Jesuits.
Yeah, that's right.
This really is the same, just in a little bit other words,
Yep.
And once again, it proves how correct Tom always is in these things.
Well, I think we've reached an hour. Should we close it up for today?
I'm just going to read the next 2 paragraphs here, because then we come to the next under chapter, and there we can take off the next time, if that's all right with you.
It's just fine. Is there any more comments here?
Nope. Okay. then I'm going to continue. From another letter written by Weishaupt, found among documents in the possession of Bavarian government, we learn that it was the Protestant churches that were the real focus of his schemes. Weishaupt wrote to his friend and chief aide, Cato, quote, "The most admirable thing of all is that great Protestants and Reformed theologians who belong to our order really believe they see in it the true and genuine mind of the Christian religion." Oh man, what can you not be brought to believe? That's the quote I meant before.
Mm-hmm.
These Protestants and Reformers swell our numbers and fill our treasury. Get busy. Make these people nibble at our bait, but do not tell them our secret. They must be made to believe that the low degree that they have reached is the highest. Unquote. Well, this is of such an importance that I probably will start next broadcast with another reading of this quote from Spartacus in the Illuminati.
Mm-hmm.
One writer asserts that Weishaupt, quote, framed many new systems of Christianity to deceive his adepts, unquote. In all likelihood, some of these new systems still masquerade as Protestant denominations today. It is also curious to note that in 1776, Frankist Karl Anton organized the Biblical Destruction Group, a closed circle of intellectuals whose main objective would be to destroy the Bible. This group later came to be known as the Higher Criticism Movement, and so on and so forth. The Higher Criticism Movement was started in the mid-1800s. And with that, we got all the forgerized Bibles upon us from 1870 on. Because from the start of the Reformation, 1520, let's say, when Martin Luther translated his Bible from the Textus Receptus, based on the text that Erasmus furnished in 1519, the very first edition of his Textus Receptus, and the Masoretic text, until the time of 1870, for 350 years, we had nothing but Textus Receptus and Masoretic text Bibles, true Bibles. And then, all of a sudden, we were overwhelmed by all these forgerized Bibles. With the NIV and I think the very first one was the ESV, the English Standard Version. And then later, of course, you had the revised English Standard Version. Those were the first corrupted Bibles to come out, starting 1870, 350 years after Martin Luther published in 1522, if I'm not mistaken, the very first Textus Receptus and Masoretic Text Bible in German, and set all of Europe free. 350 years we have been blessed with the truth, and ever since we have this higher criticism that led to all the forgerized Bibles. And the Jesuits needed all the times from their initiation in 1540 until 1870 to pave the way in the community, in the society that we are living in today, to get these forgerized Bibles out and then also to have them accepted. But that probably is the subject for another reading. Well, Julia, Michael, Brett, I thank you for your attention. I thank everybody who is watching and listening to this video for their attention and their welcome comments. And until next time, Maranatha.
Thanks, Jörg. Yeah, and I never did introduce Julia. Julia is joining us today from Toronto, Canada. She joined us in the middle of our conversation, and we got booted off. So welcome, Julia, to the reading.
Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure.
And Michael?
Yeah, same to me. And I like to thank Jörg for putting up the subject to the software eSort, because I think that
wonderful.
Can be of great help for anyone who hasn't come across it yet. So I'm very thankful that he was mentioning it, and I would ask you to, or I would recommend it to you.
Yeah, our listeners should all have eSword. If you ask me,
Mhm.
it's a wonderful program,
Yeah,
and
it is.
I use it all the time. I'm always using it. So, and I guess with that, we'll just close it up for today, and we'll see everyone next time. Hope everyone's doing well. God bless, and talk to you then. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Well, that went well without interruption.
Yeah, it did. Great. Yeah, I could have gone on a long comment on this paragraph, this last paragraph here, Yerk, about the Protestant denominations, but we'll go on that next time.
I just wanted to say I'm going to continue with that the next time.
Oh,
I
good.
will
Yeah.
repeat that. The most admirable thing of all, right? That
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you can even prepare a little comment on beforehand, and then please share with us your thoughts on that. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Julia, you didn't have any too much questions during the reading, then, did you?
No.
Well, we never introduced Julia properly either, so I could have done that at the beginning, but I just figured that we'd just go for it.
So no, you guys were in full swing, so that's great. No, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for having me participate. Look forward to another time if possible.
Yeah, that'd be fine. If with me, that's fine.
Yeah, normally I think if Brett has the time, we would come together tomorrow
Yeah,
at 9
we will.
o'clock at Brett's time.
That's right.
Which
Yep.
is 1400 my time. Yeah, I don't know what time it is in Toronto. What time do you have there, Julia?
It'd be
now?
just an hour earlier. Yeah, 8 o'clock, right?
11:20 now, so yeah, it would be 8 o'clock. It's an hour.
11:20.
Yeah, I'm an hour after you.
Oh, you're
Yeah, you're 6 hours back then, because we have 17:20 now here.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're 6 hours back. Brett is 7 hours back. 6 hours back.
Oh, so I was wrong. You add
be,
an hour. Yeah. Okay.
That would be tomorrow then at 10 o'clock your time, right?
Yep.
10
o'clock
my
her
time.
Yes.
9 o'clock your time.
Yep.
Then we come together for another reading. And Julia, if you have the time, you are most welcome to join us.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that'd be
appreciate
wonderful.
that. I'm going to the airport tomorrow. I pick up my daughter. She's arriving from overseas, so I won't be joining for sure. But hopefully, there's another time after.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good. No problem.
Well, thank you,
Sure.
gentlemen. I guess
we can always let you know when there is another time if we have your coordinates. But I think Brett has your coordinates, or Michael has your coordinates, if I'm not mistaken.
Not yet.
No, not yet. But Brett, for sure.
Yep.
We've tried to keep in touch and fellowship. So yeah, pass them on, Brett, to these two fine gentlemen if you want, and we'll do this again. I'm very interested to participate, and I always miss it, or it's not worked out in the past. So
Right. Not a problem. It's just it's always good to have more commentary on the reading that Yerk is doing, and certainly there's a lot to learn, much more than I can take in one sitting.
yeah.
Julia, it's one thing. It's one thing to just watch the video of a recording of Codeword Barbelon online, and it is another part to be a partaker of it, right?
See, I've got a request. Yes. I've got a request. If everyone would like to join me, I'd like to do a channel update video. And if we could do it on a group call, now might be a good time. And it's on the topic of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean channel update? What terms of what?
Oh, I just wanted to do a discussion on Israel.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And how long is that going to take? Because I have to go for
10,
my dinner.
20 minutes, whatever. It doesn't have to be long at all. It can just be really short. It can just be really short. It doesn't have to be long.
Okay, I'm still here, so okay, start.
Sure.
Okay.
Shoot.
Michael, you gonna stick with us?
I got 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody. This is Brett Norman. I got a channel update for you today on Saturday, May 5th, 2018. And this week, I've been thinking a little bit about this topic of Israel. And last week, Yerk and I have a Bible study with Tom Fress, and I had mentioned to Yerk during our break that I believe that the Jews, the Jewish people, are just one of the tribes of the Israelites. And what were your thoughts on that, Yerk? And what are your thoughts, Julia and Michael? You're also joined with me. What are your thoughts on it, if anyone might want to add?
Well, of course, the Jews are just one of the tribes of Israel. You know, Israel was in the beginning Jacob, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jacob wrestled with God or with Jesus whole night, and then he got his righteousness imputed by Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ made him righteous and made from the deceiver, which is the actual meaning of the word Jacob, he made Israel. And he, with his wife and his maidens that he had later on, made 12 different children. And every child was given a name, and every name of that became one of the tribes of Israel later.
Mm-hmm.
You had Benjamin, you had Manasseh, you had Judah, you had Leviticus or something, from the Levite tribe, and all that stuff. So he had 12 children, and those were the prognostos of Israel. The problem today in our world that we are living in is that people always say Jews when they actually mean Israel. I mean, there are so many people who say, but the law has been given to the Jews in Exodus. No,
Right.
the law has been given to Israel. 12 tribes, that was a nation
That's right.
made out of 12 different tribes. Judah was only one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they entered into the Holy Land, into Canaan, and they forced out the idolaters that were living there, the pagans, everybody got his share of the country. And God made it very clear, even before they went there, who was getting what part of that country. So they settled in there. And when you take up a map, you can look in the internet. And when you want to see the Israel of 2000 or 2500 years ago today, you will find maps where that is pointed out. I even have that in different Bibles. In my German Schlachter Bible, for example, there are maps in the back where you can see that. And when they went in there, the other tribes were cast out by God because of their idolatry, and only Judah remained at last. Then Judah was cast out into Babylonian captivity in the 7th and 6th century before Jesus Christ, for 70 years. And in that time, Daniel wrote his book in the Babylonian captivity, who the Jews of today do not even consider being a prophet, because the book of Daniel is not included in the book of the prophets in the Jewish Bible.
That's right.
That's why the Jews are so betrayed, and they did not know the time of their visitation, and they do not accept Jesus Christ as their Messiah, because of the rabbinic or Talmudic curse also that has been laid on them by their rabbis, that whoever turns the pages of the book of Daniel, chapter 9, verses 24 through 27, to understand the coming of Jesus Christ, his bones may rot from his hands. This is the Talmudic curse. You can look that up on the internet. So the Jews are only one of the 12 tribes that made the state of Israel. Therefore, of course, it is an absolute abomination to speak of the nation state of Israel on the territory of the state of Palestine over there in the Near East today, and then put it full of Jews. Where are all the other tribes, I ask of you?
That's right.
And second of all, why put it all full of quote unquote Jews when we read in the King James Bible or in any other Bible, when you read the first chapter of Matthew, it starts with a genealogy. It starts with proving to you that Jesus Christ, who was born out of a virgin, was the Son of God, and that was made sure in the lineage that was from Abraham to Moses, from Moses to David, and from David to I don't know where that really starts. I have to look that up. But it's every time, it's 3 times 14 generations. Yeah, I think it is from Moses. Sorry, it is from Moses to David, from David to the Babylonian captivity, and from Babylon until the coming of Christ. 3 times 14 generations are described in the Gospel of Matthew that prove that that genealogy, that line, is the line that our Father or God spoke of in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, when he said, I will put enmity between you and the serpent. I will put enmity between you, between your seed and her seed, and he will crush your head, and you shall bruise his heel. That's speaking of Jesus Christ in the very first part in the Bible, in Genesis 3:15. And that lineage was then later preserved by Seth, and we have the lineage all down to the flood and after the flood. And when you trace that down up to Matthew, you know that Jesus Christ is the Savior that was announced all along in the Old Testament. And he was to be coming out of the tribe of Judah. That's right. But Judah still is only one of the 12 tribes that make Israel. And today, that Israel there, that is a Jewish state, well, the Jews do not resemble Israel, first and for all. And the Jews of today are not the Jews of 2,000 years ago, because genealogy stopped in the Bible with the coming of Jesus Christ and with the starting of the New Testament. Genealogy is not important anymore. And you're going to tell me that those few families that survived 17 AD, when the Roman 10th Legion came and destroyed all of Jerusalem and a lot of Judah, that those few people who survived in there were interbreeding for 2,000 years and are still the quote-unquote bloodline of the Jews? I personally don't give a rat's ass for bloodline. Israel, to me, is the spiritual Israel, is meaning every Bible-believing Christian is an Israelite. He's not a Jew.
That's right.
But he is an Israelite. And that is a very, very important difference that we always have to make, Brett.
Yes.
That is my take on that.
Thank you very much for that. And I thought that was really, now would be a really good time to address you on this topic, because right now we are having huge ramifications of prophecy. Now, this nation state of Israel, there are Christians that claim that it is of God, and yeah, it's the God of this world, not the God of the Bible, Jörg.
Yeah, those are the Christians, Brett, who don't understand the message of the Bible.
Yeah, they don't. That's right.
Because there are many people who take different books of the quote-unquote Old Testament, of the law and the prophets, and transfer things that were said in there about Israel into our time, into the end time that we are living right now.
That's right.
Without having any proof of that. Because I tell you one thing, if that was true, what they say, then Jesus is and was a liar. Because Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father but by me. So there is no need for a nation state of Israel in our end times that we are living in today, if Jesus is the only way. And everybody who does not accept Jesus does not come to the Father and does not have eternal life. And his name is not written in the book of life. Point out. Whether you like it or you don't, I don't care. But that's the word of the Bible. That is not preaching from any pulpit. I am no part of any denomination. I'm neither Catholic nor Seventh-day Adventist, Methodist, Baptist, whatever. I don't care. I take the Bible, and the Bible says that there is only one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus.
Yes.
And he said, I am the door, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father but by me. So what do we need that state of Israel for then, if Jesus Christ was telling the truth?
That's right. It's to deceive the people. And that's the whole purpose of doing this little video, is to alert everyone, just to remind you, the Jewish state in Palestine proclaimed May 15th, 1948. And what is it today? May 5th, 2018. So we're coming up on 70 years. And how do these people celebrate? Well, we have Pope Francis' little movie, Jorge Bergoglio's little movie coming out here real soon. And if
Pope
anyone
Francis,
is,
word, right?
I'm sorry?
Pope Francis, a man of his word, right?
Yeah, man of his
There's
word.
a movie that's coming out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, from Roland Emmerich, from the German director.
Okay, so it's coming out on the 18th. So that's 3 days after the declaration, or what does it say here? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Or the acknowledgement even of the United Nations of the nation-state of Israel. In that
Yeah,
time,
the
in 1948.
proclamation. Let's just call it the
the
proclamation,
proclamation
of the
Yeah,
Jewish
you know,
state in Palestine.
It's just another fulfilling of Jesus Christ's words, who said, I have come in my Father's name and you received me not, and someone else will come in his own name and him you will receive.
Yeah.
All hail Caesar.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Any other thoughts, anyone?
No.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to do just a little update video on this very topic and just touch on it quick and just alert everyone to have their head up and be awake and to watch. That's it. That's all I got. And we'll talk to everyone soon, I guess. That's unless there's any closing comments anyone wants to make.
No, I've shot my bullet. I've shot my bullet.
Thank you very much. Okay. God bless everybody. Bye-bye. Yeah, I just thought it'd be kind of nice to put little something out as a reminder on that. That's all.
That's a good idea, Brett.
Why not? And I suppose I should have mentioned Tom Fress's reading that he's doing right now on the spiritual exercises. I just find fascinating.
Thanks for reminding me of the 70 years, because I wasn't aware of the fact. In spite of
sure.
having
Yeah, well, Tom's been talking about it too. So,
in spite of having several books about the subject from.
Well, we know it's 70 years since Jesus was crucified. That the 10th Legion of the Roman army came in and took the.
That is incorrect.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In the year 70.
Was crucified probably in the year 33, and in 70 AD the 10th Legion came, so that's some 37 years after that.
Sorry.
70 after Christ.
70 AD, that's right.
70 AD.
70 AD, yeah.
Yeah,
so it was really 70 years after the advent of the birth of Christ. Okay. That's right.
Yeah, that's where all people in history differ a little bit. Some people say that Jesus Christ was born 3 years
very important
for the year zero. Then you also have the year zero. Nobody knows exactly whether all this happened in 30, 33, 34. It doesn't matter.
No.
It absolutely doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you understand that Daniel's prophecy of chapter 9, verses 24 through 27 was completely fulfilled by Jesus Christ almost 2,000 years ago in the time that we are living today. That's the only thing that counts.
It's the only thing that counts. Yep. It's an amazing prophecy, and it was given by the angel to Daniel.
Yeah.
So it's not even really Daniel's
prophecy ever given in the Bible,
It's not even really Daniel's. It's God's. So, but the thing is, it's in the book of Daniel, and of course, Daniel. It was given to Daniel, so it is his. But technically,
because of his pleading, Brett.
Yes, that's right.
The visit of the archangel Gabriel to Daniel was a response to his pleading for Israel, when he went on his knees in sackcloth and ashes and confessed to God in verse after verse after verse in Daniel chapter 9 how sorry he is for the abomination that they have done to the Lord. And then he sent his answer, and that is the most wonderful thing that ever happened.
It really is. Yep. along with the other prophecies in the book of Daniel too. And the metal man image has a great deal to do with it too. So it's an incredible study.
Overwhelming.
Oh yeah, it is.
Never
It is
stop.
meant to be, I think. It's
Thank
beyond
you.
us. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry I have to cut out.
Very good. I think we'll call it quits then, because I got some food in the other room prepared, so I'm ready to eat.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
gentlemen, for having me on.
You're welcome, Julia.
You're welcome, Julia.
Mhm.
We'll talk soon.
Yep.
Bless.
Talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
God
Bye-bye.
bless.
Bye. So I'll see you at 8 then, Brett.
Okay. Very good. See you then.
Okay. See you
Okay.
later.
Okay.
Bye, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people, literally. It was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. And I believe that we've come horribly off track in the years since the fall of the Soviet Union. And we're starting now in the 21st century, which I believe strongly is a crisis both of our church, a crisis of our faith, a crisis of the West, and a crisis of capitalism.
His son Jesus is here in our midst. His bride, the church, is honored to host an event affirming the dignity of the human person and the sacredness of all human life.
I think Russia is no longer a communist state, first of all. That's very important to realize. It hasn't yet defined itself, however, effectively as a democracy. It is still uncertain.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict, of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 2,025 years.
You didn't mention the president by name, but it was hard not to conclude that that's who you were referring to. Is that fair?
I was certainly referring to the threats that we are now facing with this stated goals of this administration, which would upset the last 70 years of a new world order, which was established after World War II. 70 years based on human rights, respect for the law, free trade, all of the things and aspects of this world order that took place after one of the most horrific, terrible wars in history, and I'm for maintaining it.
We are grateful to be citizens of one nation under God, who acclaim this evening that in God we trust. Bless our two candidates, our benefactors, and those whom the L. Smith Foundation has been honored to serve for 7 decades. Guide us safely home, both this evening and for all eternity, through Christ our Lord. Amen.